Victor stood on the balcony of his large home in Lagos. The city lights shone brightly below him, but tonight, they did not make him feel happy. He was surrounded by everything money could buy, but inside, he felt empty. He held a glass of whiskey, thinking about the last few months and the pain they brought him. His first girlfriend, Ifoma, was beautiful and kind. She laughed at his jokes, and he loved being with her. Victor bought her expensive clothes, a new car, and even took her on a trip to Paris. But when he asked her to marry him, she said no. Her eyes looked sad as she spoke. "Victor, you are amazing, but I can't say yes. I don't love you enough to marry you." That moment broke his heart. Then came Sandra. She was full of life and loved being seen with him at parties. They both looked perfect together, and people often said they were the best couple in Lagos. But when he asked Sandra about their future, she avoided the topic. Soon, she left too, saying she needed more than what he could offer, even with all his money. Victor put down his drink and sighed. For the first time, he felt tired of being rich. Every time he opened his heart, he found out that the women he dated only cared about his money. His phone buzzed with messages and photos from a big event he had skipped. He didn't care about the parties and the attention anymore. He wanted something real. Just then, Emeka, his best friend since childhood, walked in. Emeka worked with him at his company. But more importantly, he knew the real Victor, the one who grew up with nothing and dreamed big. "Victor, why weren't you at the party? People were asking about you," Emeka said, sitting down with a smile. Victor tried to laugh but failed. "I am tired, Emeka. I am done with people who only see me as a rich man." Emeka looked serious. "What do you mean? Are you giving up on finding love?" Victor thought for a moment. Then an idea hit him. It was wild, but it made sense. "No, I'm not giving up. I'm going to find someone who likes me for me, not for the money, not for the parties." Emeka's eyes widened. "How are you going to do that?" Victor smiled for the first time in days. "I'm going to act poor. No one will know who I am. If someone likes me, then I will know it's real." Emeka laughed. "You, living like a regular guy? This I have to see." "I mean it," Victor said. "I will show you." Over the next few days, Victor changed his life. He put away his fancy suits and wore simple jeans and shirts. He swapped his luxury car for an old one. He rented a small apartment with plain walls and a tiny kitchen. He ate at street stalls and took public buses, something he hadn't done in years. It felt strange at first, but also freeing. People didn't stare at him or try to impress him. He was just another man on the street. One evening, after a long day, Victor was tired and hungry. He stopped at a food store to buy roasted corn. The market was full of people laughing, talking, and selling things. For the first time in a while, Victor felt at peace. Then he saw her. A young woman walked by, holding a bag of groceries. Her dark hair was tied back, and she had a kind smile. She looked simple but beautiful. She stopped to give money to a small boy selling orange, shaking her head when he tried to give her extra fruit as thanks. She didn't know anyone was watching her, but Victor saw it all. His heart felt warm. This was what he was looking for, someone who was kind and real. Victor knew he had to talk to her. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, hoping that this was the start of something true. Victor's heart beat fast as he stepped closer to the young woman. He didn't know what he would say to her, but he had to try. The market was noisy, full of people shouting and laughing. The air smelled of fried plantains and spices. He felt out of place, yet this was where he wanted to be. "Excuse me," he said, his voice a little shaky. The young woman turned to face him. Her eyes were big and warm, with a hint of surprise. "Yes," she replied, looking curious but not unfriendly. I haven't eaten all day. Could you help me buy a meal? I am short on money right now," Victor said, trying to sound humble. The woman looked at him for a moment, studying his face. Victor wondered if she would walk away, but then she nodded and said, "Sure, let's go to the small restaurant over there. They have good food." Victor's heart lifted. He followed her to the tiny, crowded restaurant with faded walls and old tables. She walked confidently, even though the place was noisy and people squeezed past them to get in and out. They found a small table near the corner, and she ordered a simple meal of rice and stew for both of them. "My name is Ada," she said as they waited for the food. "Victor," he replied, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. "So, what do you do, Victor?" she asked, resting her elbow on the table. She seemed genuinely interested, not like the women who used to ask him the same question at fancy parties. "I work as an admin at a small firm. It's not much, but it's an honest work," he said, choosing his words carefully. Ada smiled. "There is nothing wrong with that. It's better than sitting around and doing nothing." Their food came, and they ate quietly at first. Victor watched Ada as she told stories about her day, laughing softly when she described her boss, who made her run around the office all day. "Sometimes I feel like my boss doesn't know I'm human," Ada said with a smile. "It's always, 'Ada, come here. Ada, get this. Ada, do that.' But I'm thankful for the job." Victor nodded, listening intently. He had never met anyone so open and real. Most women he knew talked about shopping trips and vacations, not how hard they worked or how much they cared for their families. When they finished their meal, Victor felt a strange happiness inside him. He reached for his wallet out of habit, then remembered his plan and quickly put it back. Before he could say anything, Ada had already paid for the food. He looked at her, surprised. "It's fine, Victor," she said. "Sometimes we all need a little help." "Thank you," Victor said softly. This was the first time a woman had ever bought him a meal. He felt grateful, but more than that, he felt hopeful. He took out a small old phone for his pocket and asked, "Can I have your number? I'd like to call you sometime." Ada smiled again, this time more warmly. "Sure," she said, typing her number into his phone. "But don't forget to call. Most people don't." "I won't forget," Victor promised. They walked out of the restaurant, and Ada waved as she walked towards a bus stop. Victor watched her until she was out of sight, feeling a new kind of happiness he hadn't felt in years. He had found someone who saw him as just Victor, not the rich man who could buy anything. As he walked back to his small apartment, he couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in a long while, he felt he was moving in the right direction. Victor called Ada 2 days later. His hands were a little sweaty as he dialed her number, but he pushed through. The phone rang a few times before she picked up. "Hello," Ada's voice came through, cheerful and bright. "Hi, Ada. It's Victor. I hope you remember me," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Ada laughed softly. "Of course I remember you. How are you, Victor?" "I'm good, thanks to you," he replied, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I wanted to thank you again for that meal. It really meant a lot." "It was just a meal, Victor," Ada said, though he could hear the smile in her voice. "But you're welcome. How's work?" Victor paused, thinking of the story he had told her. "It's fine, the usual stuff, you know, lots of paperwork and trying not to fall asleep at my desk." Ada laughed again. "I know that feeling too well. My boss was in a mood today. It was Ada, come here, Ada, go there, all day. I felt like I was on a treadmill. Victor's heart ached a little as he heard her talk about her stressful job. He wished he could tell her the truth. Tell her he could make all her worries go away with just one phone call. But he reminded himself that he needed to wait. He needed to be sure. I'm sorry to hear that, he said. You work too hard, Ada. It's okay, she said with a sigh. At least I have something to do. Anyway, are you free this weekend? I'm meeting up with some friends and it would be nice if you could join us. Victor felt a rush of excitement. Yes, I'd love to. Where are you guys meeting? There's a small park near my house. We usually go there on weekends to just relax and chat. I'll send you the location, Ada said. Perfect, I will be there, Victor said, his heart racing. The weekend came and Victor showed up at the park wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. The park was busy with children playing, couples walking, and older folks chatting under trees. Victor spotted Ada sitting on a bench with two other girls. She waved when she saw him, and he walked over her, feeling a mix of nervousness and joy. Hi, Victor, Ada said as he approached. These are my friends, Gifts and Precious. Gifts, a tall girl with a bright smile, nodded at him. Precious, with curly hair and a serious face, gave him a quick look and then looked back at Ada. Hi, nice to meet you both, Victor said, trying to sound confident. So this is the famous Victor, Gift said with a playful smile. We've heard a lot about you. Victor glanced at Ada. He was blushing. He felt a bit of pride knowing that she had talked about him to her friends. The group spent the next few hours talking and laughing. Gift and Precious asked him questions about his work and life, and he kept his answers simple and truthful, sticking to the story he had built. He noticed Precious studying him quietly, as if trying to read his mind. It made him a bit uneasy, but he pushed the feeling aside. Victor, you are a really nice guy, Gift said after a while. Ada is lucky to have a friend like you. Victor smiled. I think I'm the lucky one. As the sun began to set, the group decided it was time to leave. Ada walked Victor to the gates of the park, while Precious and Gift stayed behind, still talking. I'm glad you came today, Ada said. It was nice having you here. I also had a great time, Victor said. He paused, looking at Ada. Ada, I really enjoy spending time with you. She looked up at him, her eyes kind and open. Me too, Victor. You are different from anyone I've met. Victor felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to tell her everything, but he knew he had to wait just a little longer. He nodded and smiled. See you soon, Ada. See you, she replied, turning to walk back to her friends. Victor watched her go, feeling a mix of hope and guilt. He was falling for her, and it scared him, but he knew one thing for sure. Ada was worth every risk he was taking. Over the next few weeks, Victor and Ada spent more time together. They would meet for lunch at small local food spots or take walks around the neighborhood, talking about everything from childhood memories to their dreams. Victor felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He was no longer the billionaire CEO, worried about people's motives. With Ada, he was simply Victor, the regular guy. One evening, as they sat on a bench overlooking the busy streets, Ada turned to him with a thoughtful expression. Victor, I've been thinking. Victor raised an eyebrow. Thinking about what? About your job, she said, biting her lower lips. I know you are hardworking, but have you thought about applying for a bigger role? Something that will pay you more. Victor took a deep breath, feeling the familiar pull of guilt. He had kept up the charade for so long. It was starting to weigh on him. But Ada's concern wasn't about money. It was about their future together. I have, he said finally. I've been applying, but it takes time. Ada reached over and squeezed his hand. I know. I just want you to know I'm here for you. We'll figure it out. Victor's heart swelled. He turned to her, looking at her eyes and the way her hair caught the last rays of the setting sun. Thank you, Ada. You don't know what this means to me. They sat in silence for a moment, the sound of the streets and the warm evening air surrounding them. The next day, Ada was having lunch with Gift and Precious at their usual spot, a small restaurant with bright yellow walls and the smell of spicy jollof rice in the air. The two friends were already waiting when Ada walked in. Hey Ada, Gift said, waving her over. How's your day been? Tiring as usual, Ada said, sliding into the seat across from them. But there's some good news. Victor is looking for better job opportunities. Precious exchanged a glance with Gift and then leaned forward. Ada, we need to talk, she said in a serious tone. Ada's smile disappeared. What is it? We've been worried about you, Precious said. Victor seems nice really, but he's not financially stable. Are you sure this is what you want? Ada sat back, crossing her arms. I've told you before, money isn't everything. Victor is kind and he loves me. That's what matters. Gift nodded slowly. We just want the best for you, Ada. But if he's really as hardworking as you say, then we will support you. A soft smile returned to Ada's face. Thank you. I'm glad you both understand. After her conversation with her friends, Ada felt even more certain about her relationship with Victor. But one thing still weighed on her mind, her mother's opinion. Ada has always been very close to her mother, and she valued her advice above all else. So one evening, as they sat together in the kitchen, Ada decided it was time to talk. Her mother, a kind and wise woman, was stirring a pot of soup when Ada approached her. Mom, can I talk to you about something? Her mother, with a smile, turned around. Of course, my dear. What's on your mind? Ada hesitated for a moment, unsure how to begin. It's about Victor. I really love him, but I know you've always told me to find someone who can take care of me, someone who can provide. And Victor, he doesn't have much money. Her mother paused and set the spoon down, wiping her hands with a cloth before turning to face Ada. My daughter, she began, gently. I know you worry about your future. I understand that. But I want you to remember something. Money is not the foundation of a good marriage. Love, trust, and respect are. You've told me about how Victor treats you, how he listens to you and supports you. This is more important than anything. Ada felt a rush of warmth in her chest as her mother spoke. But what about when we need things? What about when we have children? How will we survive? Her mother smiled softly and took Ada's hands in hers. Love and hard work can go a long way, my daughter. If you truly love each other, you will find a way. Victor may not have money now, but with time, things can change. You have to believe in him and in yourself. If he loves you the way he says he does, he will do everything he can to make things work. And if you love him too, you will stand by him through the tough time. Ada felt a tear slip down her cheek as she looked at her mother. Thank you, Mommy. You've always known just what to say to make me feel better. I don't know what I would do without you. Her mother pulled her into a hug. You'll be fine, Ada. If he's the right home for you, I'll support you. I want you to be happy, no matter what. Ada smiled through her tears, feeling a sense of peace. Her mother's words gave her the courage to follow her heart. Victor, meanwhile, had made a decision. It was time to meet Ada's family and see where she came from. He wanted to make the next step, and he needed to know if her family was as genuine and as kind as she was. That Sunday, he arrived at Ada's family home. It was a modest, warm house, painted light blue with potted plants on the porch. The door was open, and the sound of laughter and talking filled the air. Ada came out to greet him, wearing a simple dress and a smile that made his heart skip a beat. Victor, welcome, she said, taking his hand and leading him inside. Inside, her mother was stirring a pot in the kitchen, and the smell of freshly made egusi soup filled the room. Ada's younger brother was playing with a toy car on the floor. When Ada introduced Victor, her mother turned, wiping her hands on her apron. So you are the Victor we've heard about, she said with a smile. Welcome to our home. Victor felt an unexpected warmth spread to him. Thank you, Ma. It's nice to finally meet you. They sat down for a meal, and Victor couldn't help but feel at home. Ada's mother served him a large plate of egusi soup with apple, and he ate with a joy he hadn't felt in years. The food was delicious, but it was more than that. It was a sense of belonging. After dinner, Victor turned to Ada, who was watching him with a curious look. He took a deep breath and said, Ada, I need to tell you something. I don't have much, but I love you. I will work hard every day to make sure you're happy. Will you marry me? The room went silent. Ada's mother's eyes widened, and her brother stopped playing with his toys. Ada's own eyes filled with tears as she looked at Victor. Yes, Victor, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I will marry you. Victor's chest swelled with emotion. He wanted to shout from the rooftop, but deep inside, he knew the moment to reveal who he really was fast approaching. The days leading up to the engagement party felt like a blur to Victor. He was on a cloud nine, especially after Ada has accepted his proposal. It wasn't just the idea of marrying her that made him so happy. It was the fact that she loved him for who he was, not for the wealth he had. But deep down, Victor knew that the time had come for him to tell her the truth, the real truth. He had kept the secret for so long, and though he had enjoyed pretending to be a man of humble means, it was now time for Ada to see the real Victor, wealthy, successful, and someone who had built an empire. The only question in his mind was how she would react. Would she be disappointed that he had lied to her? Or would she understand that he had only done it because he wanted to find someone who truly loved him? Victor spent the week preparing. He booked the venue, arranged for the food and entertainment, and hired a team to make the night unforgettable. It wasn't just any engagement party. It was going to be a lavish celebration that Ada would never forget. He even bought her a beautiful dress and matching heels, telling her that he had saved up for months to afford them. In truth, it was only a fraction of what he could have spent, but he wanted to make sure she felt special, and he wanted to make the night perfect. The day of the party, Ada was nervous but excited. She had no idea what Victor had planned. When he arrived at her apartment to pick her up, she was stunned by how handsome he looked in his well-tailored suit. He smiled at her, taking her hand gently. "Are you ready?" he asked. "Ready for what?" Ada replied, a little bit confused. "You will see," Victor said with a playful wink. When they arrived at the venue, Ada's jaw dropped. The place was stunning. A large hall decorated with gold and white drapes, sparkling chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, and a red carpet leading to the stage. The room was filled with people, celebrities, dignitaries, and business people that Ada had only seen on TV. She felt out of place, but was also amazed. "Victor," Ada whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What is all of this?" Victor smiled and led her to the stage, where a large backdrop read, "Will you marry me?" In front of it, a heart-shaped table with 2 chairs sat. As Ada stepped closer, she saw the huge diamond ring resting on a cushion in the center. Before she could process it all, Victor knelt down on one knee, holding the ring in front of her. "Ada, I've kept a secret from you," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "The truth is, I'm not the man I told you I was. I'm not poor. I'm not struggling. I'm the CEO of a large company with investments all over the country. I wanted to find someone who loved me for me, not for my wealth. And you, Ada, you've shown me that you love me for who I am. That's why I'm asking you to marry me. Will you?" Ada stood, frozen, her heart racing. She had suspected that Victor wasn't exactly who he was, but she had never imagined this. The man she loved was a billionaire, and yet he had chosen to keep his wealth a secret from her. Tears filled her eyes as she gazed down at him. "Victor, I don't know what to say. I don't understand." Victor took her hands in his. "I did it because I wanted to find someone who truly loved me for me, Ada, not for what I have, but for who I am. I hope you can forgive me for lying to you. But now that you know, will you still be with me?" Ada's eyes softened as she looked at him, the confusion slowly fading away. She had always believed in him, always trusted him. His wealth didn't change how she felt about him. It only made her admire him more for his integrity. "Yes, Victor," she said, her voice trembling. "I love you, and nothing would change that. I will marry you." The room erupted into applause as Victor placed the ring on her finger. It sparkled under the bright light, and Ada's heart fluttered. She had never expected this, never imagined that her life would take such a turn. But here she was, about to marry a man who had shown her the true meaning of love: honesty, respect, and care. After the proposal, the party continued, but Ada couldn't stop smiling. She looked around at all the guests, the beautiful setting, and realized that it didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was that she had found the love of her life, and they would build a future together. Later that night, as they sat in a quiet corner, Victor turned to Ada and whispered, "You know, Ada, I've been thinking. I want to give you everything. I want to make you happy. But you don't have to work for that mean boss anymore. I can take care of everything for you. I just want you to be happy." Ada looked at him, her heart swelling with affection. "Victor, you don't have to do that. I love you because of who you are. Your money doesn't change anything. I will work, I will help, and we will build a life together." Victor smiled, feeling a sense of peace he had never known before. "You are right, and together we will be unstoppable." That night ended with a promise of love, honesty, and a future full of dreams. Ada's friends, Gift and Precious, who had been there throughout the entire journey, were excited for her. They could see how much she loved Victor, and they knew that he was the one. The weeks that followed were filled with wedding preparations, family visits, and excited discussion about their future. Victor continued to work hard, and Ada supported him every step of the way. They were no longer worried about the things that didn't matter. What mattered now was that they had each other. Victor's world had changed forever the day he met Ada, and Ada had found not just the man she loved, but a partner who would walk with her through life's ups and downs. Together, they were ready to face the world, and so they lived happily ever after. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. I am glad you did. Please support me by liking this video, sharing it and subscribing. And don't also forget to share your thoughts in the comment section. See you in the next video. Bye.